course, this huge breaking news about Musselman, obviously replacing Mike Anderson after Anderson was at the helm for 8 years for the Razorbacks. I just got a statement in from Hunter Yurachek. In fact, I want to get a quick take from Mike about the way he did this on Twitter. Hunter, he had a poof of smoke coming out of Bud Walton Arena. You could tell that he's pretty fired up that this thing had just been completed. But actually, this coming in from Twitter from Hunter Yurachek. I'm excited to officially announce the hiring of Eric Musselman as our new head coach, to welcome his wife Danielle, their daughter and sons Matthew and Michael, to the Arkansas Razorback family. #OneRazorback. What about the fit here? What do you think about the hire?
Well, it's been my experience in watching these coaching hires over the years that when somebody's fired, I don't care if it's football or basketball or whatever, the guy they hire next is the polar opposite of the guy you end up with.
We've seen that, yeah.
I could go to Brett Bielema, who ran this very conventional pro-style offense, went down into Texas and told all those high school coaches down there, you're doing it the wrong way. Here's my offense, and I can beat you with it. Now you have Chad Morris, who's got a very new, modern offense that's a spread, but it's got some power aspects to it. It's so difficult, this team still hasn't learned it yet. So it's very different from that one, and he is loved in Texas. And so, you know, you just get the opposite. Well, that's what you've got here. Mike Anderson was a quiet, almost introverted guy, didn't call attention to himself, didn't do a lot of dramatics during games. Now you've got an in-your-face, intense, we're going to get it going, I'm going to go bonkers, I'm going to go out and run up and down the sidewalks and get our students into the thing, I'm going to crawl in a tent with a student waiting to get tickets, I'm going to print up T-shirts, I'm going to go nuts after a game and take my shirt off and run around celebrating that we just won a game. There you see.
There it is.
Right there. This is the kind of guy you're getting. I mean, he is just intense. And, you know, I think it'll play well in Bud Walton Arena. That place it's just unbelievable when the excitement level there is going, and it's been too dull lately. And so maybe this is what it takes. He's also very intense in terms of the way he coaches. Now, the style is not unsimilar to what Mike Anderson wants. A game in the 80s, up and down. It's different from what we've seen with Chris Beard and what we're going to see in this national championship game Monday night. It's not totally defensive oriented, good defense, but basically hard-nosed basketball players that are pushed in practice to be hard-nosed. And that was the thing we were told that Hunter Yurachek, one of the things that he noticed with Arkansas this year that he didn't like was the lack of intensity, the lack of toughness, and that's one of the reasons he was interested in Kelvin Sampson. And let's just, you know, line this up right now. I believe that he is their second target. I don't believe, after looking at all this, talking to everybody I've talked to, I don't think they ever thought they could get Chris Beard. But I do think that Hunter on Monday first went to Kelvin Sampson because he'd been told by Sampson, hey, yeah, I'm very interested, I'll listen. I think what happened is Houston loses on a Friday. By the time Yurachek calls him on Monday, he's already gotten this new contract with Houston, which gives him a raise, but more importantly gives his coach in waiting title to his son, Kellen Sampson. And I think that was the key deal. And I think when he got that, he didn't want to leave. And he told Hunter Yurachek that. Now, there were a lot of people thought, oh, he's just messing around. What's going on? He got criticized all through this thing. He didn't know what he was doing. Well, by, I believe, Monday night, some say he brought Musselman in here at night. Now, I did have somebody in the athletic department talk to me on Tuesday when everybody saw the arena set up for a press conference and there were all these supposed sightings of Musselman.
Right.
And he said to me, we're not that dumb. We do not bring a candidate in here to look over the facilities in the middle of the daytime with the arena open and everybody walking around. If we bring somebody in just to look around, it's going to be at night. And I believe that that's what happened, that Musselman came in that night, looked it over. They were talking numbers with him. Now, I do know, because I talked to a longtime friend of mine that works kind of associated with the athletic department, once was an employee of the athletic department. He was supposed to be in a meeting at 11 a.m. Tuesday, and he couldn't go. But he said they definitely were going to talk about a coach, and I believe it was Musselman. And what I'm told is that in that meeting, Yurachek was interested right there. Let's see what we can do with him. Do you like this guy? Can we hire him? A lot of people think the AD just says, this is who I want, and the board rubber stamps it. Doesn't work that way. The board does have to approve any hires, And I'm told that one board member had reservations after talking to some people about Musselman. I think he was worried a little bit about the intensity, the in-your-face stuff, wasn't sure how it would play here.
Yep.
And he just wanted to hold off. So Juracek didn't take a vote at that point. He then took the next day, brought Greg Marshall in here at night, made him an offer. He rejected that offer, and then they immediately turned back, I believe, to Musselman. I think by that time the board member said, okay, you know, and I think this one board member was kind of really holding out for Beard too, and I think he realized that was not going to happen. So by certainly Friday night, maybe Saturday, I think this thing was starting to come together. And so now you got a new coach. Now you got a guy that it's going to be interesting because the reaction to him is going to be mixed. We've already looked at it on social media. Again, I said, I think the average fan, they're fine with whoever you hire because they trust the people that are doing the hiring to do the right job. That's the average non-social media person. The more plugged in, I'm fired up, I want to get a coach, we got to win, those people are going to split. Probably not quite down the middle. I think more people will think this is a good hire than not. But there are going to be people that say you shouldn't have fired Mike. There are going to be people that said you should have got, you know, Greg Marshall.
Home run hire, they think. Maybe that's the way you could term it.
Should have paid him more money, should have thrown the moon at him, should have waited for Chris Beard. You shouldn't fire Mike to get a guy that we basically didn't know about until now. And so it's kind of a Chad Morris type thing, except Musselman has had, he's been there 4 years, not 3, and he has an NBA background, and he's won more.
Right.
He's won 76% of his games in 4 years. And so when you put all that together, I think it looks like a good hire. But then I'm realistic. I'm not one of these people that thinks they had millions of dollars to throw at people, because they didn't. And I don't think they could have afforded Chris Beard, and honestly, I don't think they could have afforded Greg Marshall.
Right.
So you get this guy, you probably don't even have to pay him what you were paying Anderson, or you could match that, and he's going to be happy. And you can bring a guy in here that's fresh and wants to do things. It's still going to be an up-tempo offense. There's just going to be toughness to what they do.
Yeah, how's it going to translate from Mountain West Conference to the SEC? Obviously, you mentioned the 4 years at Nevada for Eric Musselman, and if you look at it, wins in that fashion, 24 wins his first year with the Wolfpack, 28 the second year, 29 the third year, 29 the fourth year, and we know in 2017-18 he went all the way to the Sweet 16 with Nevada. In terms of the deal, a couple of big notables here. The terms are this: $2.5 million per year is what they're going to pay Eric Musselman.
Yeah, that's Anderson's salary.
Over 5. Mike was making 2.55. So again, just to reiterate, 5-year deal for Eric Musselman, making $2.5 million per year. And we talked about the college experience and NBA experience. Mike mentioned that. And if you look at his college experience, just kind of in recent years, if you want to go back all the way to 2013, he was at Arizona State as an assistant. He coached under Herb Sendek, and 2013 to 14, he was at Arizona State as well, spending a lot of time there in Tempe, associate head coach. They went to an NCAA tournament when Musselman was there on the staff. 2014-15, and here's the SEC connection. He was with Johnny Jones at LSU, associate head coach, and it was kind of interesting the way that wheels turn there, Mike, because eventually Musselman goes to Nevada. Johnny Jones is moving to Nevada as an associate coach during that whole transitional period. So those two guys obviously have a certain bond. But now you look at these last 4 years at Nevada, 3 consecutive Mountain West Conference titles. We talked earlier on a Facebook Live about the rebounding margin in Nevada's favor. He is a tough-minded coach, very gritty. 2.5. Nevada was better in the rebounding margin than its opponents. This is a team that averaged 80 points per game under Musselman this past season, allowed just 67. You've mentioned it, and we've kind of talked about it as sort of a theme of the day. This guy is going to be more of an in-your-face coach than what we saw under Mike Anderson. And we've talked a lot about the word soft. It just seemed at times, often, Arkansas was too soft this past season during an 18 and 16 season, going all the way to the second round of the NIT. Yeah,
and he's going to be a guy that's kind of the opposite of what you see at Kentucky. He's the opposite of one and done. This is a guy that believes you win with experienced players. Where did we see a problem this year with Arkansas? May be fine to be one and done with Kentucky. It's not good to have that many young guys at Arkansas. And so he has a reputation of bringing in JUCOs in any specific year. If he looks at his roster, says there's too much youth there, got to bring in some JUCOs. Got to have enough juniors and seniors on my team. So he'll do that. He also, though, does recruit high school pretty well. He got a 5-star kid to come in there and commit to Reno, Nevada, which can't be easy. And I think what you will find is he will have success selling the idea to high school kids. I was an NBA coach. I know what it takes to play in the NBA. I can get you there. But now I don't think he's going to, once they get on board, I don't think he's going to put up with some guy that, like we've seen players go, well, you know, I should be starting. He's not doing enough for me to get me to the NBA after 1 year. I don't think you're going to see that. I think he will sell these recruits on the idea I can get you to the NBA. But when they get here, it's all about team play. If I have to sit you down and bring you off the bench, or if I have to make a change here or there, you're a part of this whole process, but you're a part of it. You're not the whole part of it. And we are less concerned about you right now than we are us. And so I think that's what you're going to see from him as a head coach.
Yeah, a few more notables from the contract, and we'll try to get these things on your screen as we continue this breaking news coverage. Eric Musselman, the new head men's basketball coach from the University of Arkansas. Part of the terms of the deal, $250,000 for the first appearance in the NCAA tournament regional semifinals game, that being the Sweet 16. $350,000 for the first appearance in the NCAA tournament national semifinals game, that being the Final Four. $500,000 for winning the national championship. So you look at this, and he's somebody who was making about $1 million at Nevada. And coaching the Wolfpack, he was the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. But again, Mountain West being what it is compared to now being in the SEC. We're looking at the SEC. Mike and I have talked about it. Over the last 3 or 4 years, the SEC has been highly evolved. You're talking about really good coaches in this league, virtually top to bottom. And more, it just gets that much more competitive to get in the upper echelon as far as seeding for the SEC tournament and then some. And we've seen, as we've talked about during the Facebook Live, guys who I think are good coaches who had to get in a scenario where they parted ways. Avery Johnson in Alabama, he was kind of tough luck in some of those games with Bama, and he's no longer there. Nate Oates comes over from Buffalo, goes to Alabama. You're just looking at a situation where Musselman's coming in. Yeah, you had the success at Nevada, but how will it translate to the University of Arkansas? And to get more on Eric Musselman, who of course has a lot of that NBA experience as well. We'll get more to that as we continue this breaking news coverage. I want to bring in Wes Moore from our sister station as he is in the capital city of Little Rock. What's going on, Wes? I want to get your take on this. Eric Musselman, the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks.
You know, I think there's been a lot of criticism over the last couple of days about how long this has taken, but if you look behind the scenes and kind of know what was going on behind the scenes, I think they did a great job of interviewing some other candidates while they were waiting on Chris Beard. And when it became evident that Chris Beard wasn't going to leave Texas Tech, they were ready to go. I honestly feel like before the game yesterday, they thought they still had a chance to talk to Chris Beard and lure Chris Beard to Arkansas. But once he won and is playing for a national championship for Texas Tech, that it became apparent it's not going to happen. So they moved. They were ready to go with their other plan. I think they had 3 candidates they really liked, and they got one of those 3 in Eric Musselman. One of the things that really sticks out to me, guys, is his coaching career. We've been talking about the NBA and how attractive that is to some of these recruits that, like you said, I've been to the NBA. I know how to get you to the NBA. But you look what he's done in college at Arizona State, LSU, and now as a head coach at Nevada. Each one of those stops, he won over 20 games. At Arizona State, it was 21-6. They went to the NIT. The next year, they liked Eric Musselman so much, they promoted him to associate head coach. They went 21-6 again and went to the NCAA tournament. Then he went to LSU. They won 22 games at LSU, went to the NCAA tournament, went to Nevada, first year as a head coach, won the CBI. They didn't get into the NCAA tournament, but still won 24 games in Nevada. And then the last 3 years, they've won 28, 29, and 29 games going to the NCAA tournament each year. So you look at college resume only, he's been to the NCAA tournament as an assistant coach or as a head coach 5 of the 7 years. The other 2, he won the CBI and went to the NIT. So that shows me that the NBA game, the NBA things that he learned, has transitioned to the college game, and he's been able to push that off to his college kids. It's very interesting. We have Real Deal in the Rock going on this weekend, so you have all these high school kids and summer coaches here in town, and we sent a reporter out earlier today and she ran into Mardrakus Wade. Mardrakus is still playing professionally overseas. Of course, Mardrakus Wade played for the Razorbacks, and he actually played a game for Coach Musselman. We'll play you that interview later on, but I can tell you that Mardrakus Wade was very excited about this hire. He said that Coach Wade, that when he played under Coach Wade for this All-Star game, that he really pushed the up-tempo. He was pushing to be a good teammate, and he said, we got a great guy that's going to come in with a lot of energy. We got a good one. So that's a former Razorback that is excited about this hire of Coach Musselman.
Yeah.
Guys?
All great stuff. Thanks very much, Wes Moore, there in Little Rock, and Mike, to sort of feed off of what Wes just said there at the end. The fact that this guy brings that energy, can ignite a crowd. You look at the marketing aspect of getting people back into Bud Walton Arena in masses, and that's been an issue here in recent years. You talk about just kind of getting that new energy. I think that Eric Musselman can bring that, and obviously, marketing-wise, I think you need to do more and more to get connected with your head coach to improve that game-like atmosphere.
And I will also say that I think he's going to put a big push when he gets here to get the students back into that arena. They may have to somehow figure out how to increase the size of the area where they sit. I've always believed in the old days under Eddie Sutton, in the early days under under Nolan, both Barnhill and Bud Walton, the student section was important. It hasn't been as important lately. So here's a guy that will go out when people are lined up trying to get tickets, and he'll talk to them, maybe bring them a pizza, climb in a tent, get them fired up, have T-shirts printed up,
yeah,
pass out T-shirts. He's going to be very active with the students. He'll be active with the fan base. And I think, again, when you come into Bud Walton Arena next fall, you're going to see a show. I think you saw someone is going to inherit a better team than Mike had when the season started, because these guys will all be a year down the road.
Yep. And
it is going to be interesting to see in those first few days after he gets here what the word is about how the players are mixing and meshing with him. Mm-hmm. What's that going to be like? And I can't tell you that. I can tell you he's intense, and he's fired up, and he'll get fired up in games. He supposedly can be very intense with his players, and even with his assistant coaches. The word is he'll burn through assistant coaches. He puts pressure on them, and he can put pressure on. He's kind of Petrino-like, or has that reputation when he's dealing with people in the athletic administration. I'm not Mr. Nice Guy. I'm here to make some things happen, and I may make you mad, but I'm here to work. So again, it'll be interesting to watch all of that unfold.
What you're getting at, he's going to challenge you. He's going to challenge you on all levels: development, game situations, how you're going to adjust. Wes Moore has more on this hiring of Eric Musselman from Nevada to Arkansas. Obviously, this is somebody with 30-plus years of coaching experience. His dad, Bill Musselman, was a coach in the NBA with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. More on that NBA experience coming up. But this guy Eric, he has coached under the likes of Doc Rivers, Mike Fratello. What you got as far as tidbits, Wes?
Well, I have a friend that is very familiar with the Nevada program, and he told me that I believe it's 8 assistants in 3 years that he's gone through. And he compared, I heard you say about Bobby Petrino, he compared him to Nick Saban as far as assistants. He's very demanding, asks a lot of his assistants, and a lot of times those assistants, it's hard for them to stick around. So he does, like you said, he goes through his assistants. But it's not a bad thing to be compared to Nick Saban with anything. If you win, that's what really matters. I would say this on recruiting. If you watch social media for this guy, he's a lot different from, let's say, Mike Anderson. He uses social media, Twitter, to his advantage. He's always tweeting things, and I think you're going to see that with recruiting. Maybe like you see with Chad Morris and the football team, how they use Twitter, social media to get out there. They're very proactive on the football side of things, not so much on basketball, but I think that will change under Musselman. I think you're going to see a social media presence, and we all know the students are going to eat that up. I think you're right on something there, Mike, that the students will pick up on that, and they're going to be excited about this hire once they get to know Coach Musselman.
Yeah, Wes, I tell you what, there's always things you hear, through speculation, whether somebody is just driving his assistants too much. I mean, I remember when I covered Tom Crean at IU, and there were people who were like, well, you know, some of his assistants are put off by how much he brings over and over again as far as the energy. Maybe it's too much. You know, we kind of need to back off a little bit and just sort of make sure it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to be careful who you're listening to and how you listen to the information coming at you. But what do you think about that, Mike, based on some of the things Wes talked about, not just in recruiting, but you mentioned the assistants and the relationships and how you're working with your staff to challenge each other to get the best out of those assistants. There was a lot of talk about non-development of the guys under Mike Anderson, and there were always some issues where it was like, is that a problem with TJ Cleveland or Melvin Watkins? What's your take on that?
Well, we'll have to see, but that is what we're hearing, that, you know, he coaches a tough brand of basketball. He's going to go in there and challenge these guys. And hopefully you're not going to see, as I said earlier, some kid go, well, you know, you're not developing me for the NBA. I thought I was ready to go to the NBA after a year, and I'm not. So I'm not on their radar, so you didn't do your job, so I'm leaving. I don't think you'll see that. I think
Jay, can you stick that on Latitude? They cannot find it.
He will create a culture where that doesn't happen.
Yep, absolutely. I do believe we have some video coming in of Hunter Yurachek going to the house. Here's a guy who is certainly celebrating this hire. I mean, regardless, what do you want to say out there? Maybe, you know, they were okay. I'll just kind of quiet down here. I believe there's some good sound here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Michael, good to see you. I'm Hunter. It's a pleasure. This is Mariah. I have seen you on TV. You're a heck of a reporter. Aren't you? Yeah. This is Matthew. Matthew, good to see you. That's awesome. Y'all doing all right?
Yeah, we're doing awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's great stuff there. I mean, meeting with the Musselman family, you know, just great emotion there to see that. Again, leaving Nevada after 4 years. And, you know, his wife, Danielle, has been in the broadcasting realm, so it's going to be great to greet them when they come on campus. Somebody who has been in this coaching profession a long time. He's been through so many ranks, the NBA D-League, for instance, and I think that was a great point you made earlier, Mike. You just talk about development and telling these guys that are currently here, whether they're freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, hey, I've been there. I know what it takes. I know what they're looking for at the next level. Being in the D-League, he had success, and he moved on to the NBA. Obviously, he was let go a couple times, but not only that, he just comes from such a long and well-respected coaching tree. And I mentioned his dad's roots, the late Bill Musselman, who coached a couple times as a head coach in the NBA.
Yes, and you mentioned his wife. I just got through about an hour ago reading an article that was written that talked about how she came in and changed his demeanor around the media. Apparently he was sort of unfriendly, media unfriendly. And it's not a matter of whether they make the media happy or not. From her standpoint, it was, this can hurt you or it can help you. That's what I've always said. I don't care if you're a coach and you want to treat me like a jerk. That's your business. My job to put up with it. But it most of the time is not good for you when you do that. There's no reason to do that unless you're being treated unfairly. So I think what she did, according to the article, was she came in and said, look, this can really help you. This can help your career. The media is a mirror of what you are. So if you learn how to put your best foot forward in front of them, and she had been in the media, she'd been to press conferences, she knew how to talk to him and tell him how he deals with the media in a press conference. How do you deal with a difficult situation when you get asked a question you don't like? How do you handle it? And so what we may see is a more refined version of kind of what I was talking about earlier, because a lot of these comments that I got, and this was all the way back on Tuesday when I think they wanted to hire him back then. It just didn't happen because I think there were some people that wanted to wait on Chris Beard, and there were some objections. We got to look further into this guy and check out some of these things that some people have said. And I think some of those things that were being said might have been things from earlier in his career, and he's a little bit different now in that respect. He's still got the fire and the enthusiasm, maybe doesn't get quite as angry away from, you know, the game. He can get as angry as he wants when he's coaching that game or dealing with players. But when you're dealing with the public, maybe more refined. So, but it's always the fun part of the job for me. I don't like coaching searches. I hate them because
I don't like them either.
You got 12 people telling you, you know, 6 different versions of something.
Right.
And the big problem is, at any given time, you may be, what you're being told may be an hour old, it could be a day old, it could be 2 days old. They don't always tell you, I heard this and this and this. And so you may be walking around thinking a certain thing just happened when it happened a day ago, and it's already changed. So this is why we get off track. We don't really know. And you generally find out sort of when it's all over what the timeline was and how this all came together. So I don't like the coaching searches, but it is fun to deal with a new coach, because that part of it is what any good reporter does. You get to know somebody and start trying to figure them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit more on his history in the game, more on Musselman. He won 110 games at Nevada, the Wolfpack, with 3 straight Mountain West Conference titles. As I mentioned, went to the Sweet 16, 2017, 18, 29 wins for Nevada each of the past 2 years. West talked about that. Musselman, as Mike mentioned, 75% of his games he has won in conference with the Wolfpack. He is 54 years of age and played at San Diego. He grew up in Minneapolis, but if you look at where he was born in Ohio. And you see right there his college experience that I alluded to prior, 2012-13 Arizona State, 13-14 Arizona State. There were the Sun Devils as well, LSU 14-15, and then up until recently at Nevada each of the last 4 years. And, you know, another big part of his resume, as I've talked about, is his NBA experience. A former head coach at Golden State and Sacramento. His NBA past started with assistant coaching jobs with Orlando and Atlanta from 1998 to 2002. Now he's coached under Doc Rivers, Chuck Daly, and Lon Kruger. He won about 46% of his games, leading Golden State from 2002 to 04, and was let go in 2004. We're going to have much more as far as this breaking news. Eric Musselman, the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, coming over from Nevada, making the move from the Mountain West Conference to the SEC. Stay with the Pigtail Nation throughout the day. Mike Irwin, Drew Ammon, Wes Moore, all of us here at the Pigtail Nation. We'll see you a little bit later on. Take care.